Minutes.
45 minutes.
45 minutes, okay. Okay, the session that I was planning to do is an open discussion. I don't have slides to moderate the session. And it's about to discuss of Bitcoins. Just to agree the level of know-how of what is Bitcoin. Who knows what is Bitcoin? All of us? Okay. Short intro? Okay. For the ones who are less familiar with Bitcoin, Bitcoin is what is called a cryptocurrency, a distributed cryptocurrency. Currency, it means it's a currency, a way to store value, for example, to be able to exchange value with the others. We are used to use currency as euro or dollars. There are a lot of types of currency with different type of properties. Years ago, it was the gold standard, that it was also used to store value and do trade and exchange value between the others. The other thing is that as a cryptocurrency, it means that the way that that currency works is that you don't know who is behind the ownership of that value, of that amount of currency. Okay? That use crypto technologies or crypto algorithms based on standards that comes from mathematics to be able to hire, and that is mainly based on what is called public and private type of doing encryption of messaging. Okay? That is if you want, a type of techniques that has been developed for mathematicians for a lot of time, and it was the paper that was put in place for this Japanese guy that for a long time has been an anonymous person, the one who designed that paper, where Bitcoin currency was defined, the way to implement that algorithm. Okay? To make it simple and not go into details, or if we can go and do a deep dive into the way that works. A crypto system that is based in a public and private key. The private, as you can assume, is the one that you and only you know, and you need to store in a safe place. And the public one is the one that you give to the others. Then, when you want to send, in this case, Bitcoin is not a coin, and it's not a bank, it's a string of characters, one after the other, that you cannot understand mainly what is there. Okay? When you take the coin, that is a message, you put the public key that you are delivering to the others to identify that this is to you, and when I want to make a transfer of money, of value to you, you take the Bitcoin that you want to send to me, that there is an identification, you add the public key, you send it, and at that moment, with my private key, I'm able to decrypt what is the transaction there and see the transaction. But nobody knows and is able to get access about the content of that message. In that message, what is in? You, as the one who are sending the money, me, as the one who is receiving that money, and the amount of money that we are transferring. Okay? But this is do it in a way that nobody that can look or can sack that information is able to see who is sending the money and who is receiving the money. Okay? That is really interesting because it's really not common, that thing, for example, in the way that we nowadays are using currency, where you know who are you sending the money and who is receiving the money. Okay? And the other piece, and it's really, really interesting as a property, is that it's a decentralized currency system. Nowadays, our currency system is centralized. You need an institution, usually a bank, who is the one who gives trust to the transaction. And this is basic thing, the trust in the transaction, to avoid people doing several times transactions based on the same amount of money. Okay? Nowadays, to make it simple, the banks are the ones who are giving trust that you have this amount of money in your account, and when you define to send money to another account, are the ones who give trust to take this money out of your account, put it here, say that this guy has now more money and that it's true, and that you have now less money and you can only do it once and you cannot do it several times with the same amount of money. Okay? That thing, it means that with centralized systems of currency, there is one entity that can be a bank that has a lot of information and power to manage the way that the currency system is managed. Okay? This is the three main ways that Bitcoins work. Okay? There is another and big property of the Bitcoin system. That is thing that goes by definition into the way that Bitcoin's currency system was defined. Okay? That is completely different, for example, from the use of money that we are used to use, for example, dollars or euros. The amount of Bitcoins that the system will have on the currency system is defined. It means, for example, nowadays, if a government needs money and asks for a loan, you can print more money and you can put more money into the market. It means that the mass of currency into the market, it gets bigger. That usually is related that the value that that money is storing decrease, okay? Because since there is more money and the value is constant, it means that the value related to the money is lower, okay? Then for nowadays, store value with euros is not a good business, because most probably in the future you are losing value, okay? But at the moment that the amount of money that will be issued into the system is fixed, you know that never people will start to do more money to solve, for example, a loan to a government or whatever. That means that there is a property in that currency that is really different from the currencies that we have already using in our markets, that is a good place to store value, okay? Because it's inflationary. It means since the amount of money that is into the market always be constant, it means that the value of the currency will increase to be able to get the amount of value that is into the system. It's clear? I'm explaining myself or not? It's too basic and we need to go more deep, okay? Then how you manage? And that is the most interesting part of Bitcoins for me. How you manage that decentralized system. How you are able to guarantee that transactions that are anonymous, nobody is doing double use of the same amount of money. That is do it in a distributed way. It means there is a community behind who is taking care of that. That is do it through a thing that is called blockchain. Blockchain is a fundamental piece into the Bitcoin system. Blockchain, to make it simple, is a file where all the transactions are stored, one after the other, since the beginning, since the first Bitcoin were released, okay? This log file is public, but since it's encrypted, you can see the transactions, but you cannot see who is behind the transactions. But you know how many Bitcoins have been moved, but you don't know exactly who is behind that, okay? Then the system, and the system at the end of the day became as a servers, it means computers that they have installed a program that is the Bitcoin program, that are the ones that every time that you have your wallet and another wallet, I give you my address of the wallet, the Bitcoins and my public key, and you do the transaction, that goes to the blockchain. That blockchains create that list of transactions that at the end of the day, each transaction is linked to the other to guarantee that there is no cut into the block and all the transactions are true, okay? And that, to say that the transaction is good or not, you need to solve a mathematical problem, okay? That mathematical problem is that you need to solve is what is called a hash function, is really, really tricky because it gets more complex as more computational power the community is putting there, okay? That makes that at the really beginning, when the Bitcoin community starts, there are not so much computational power there, mainly PCs that were running the system. And it was really easy to solve the problem, okay, and to validate the change. At the moment that more people get into the Bitcoin community, to make it simple, how you get into a Bitcoin community? You just go to internet, you download a wallet, you create an account, and the other thing, and I will explain later, if you want to mine Bitcoins, okay? When you do that validation with the hash function, that is based on the computational power that is into the system, okay? then nobody owns that log file, that blockchain. That is public. And the ones who are giving trust is at the moment that the community solves the problem from different servers. Okay. That is really, really interesting property. Okay? Forget about, for a minute, about cryptocurrency and everything. But let's consider, for example, an emerging country where banking systems are not implemented because there is no revenue there, because it's difficult to implement. The blockchain concept, if we summarize, if you are a community and you have computational power, it means you have a mobile phone nowadays, okay? You can create a log file of a transaction activity of the community. It means that the blockchain technology can allow to get banking systems or transaction systems with validation to communities, okay? That means that the really dramatic disruption that Bitcoin is bringing to the financial sector, to the banking sector, besides the property of the Bitcoin to store value, to be secure, to be anonymous, there is another big property that is allowing people just having a cell phone. I say cell phone because, as you know, in a lot of emerging markets, they don't have PCs. They just jump straight to the mobile area. Nowadays, you can do computations into a mobile phone. That means that, for example, in a country in Africa, you can implement really easy a banking system that allows them to trade. First of all, decentralized, that there is no legal entity who is controlling everything, with a money that can store value, and with a way that is anonymous, with zero cost of implementation. That, for me, is the real disruption of Bitcoin. Besides that, is anonymous, decentralized, is an alternative currency to the one, and that hackers are using it, blah, 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 okay? And there is a dark side of Bitcoins. Do you know or listen about Silk Road? Do you know what is Silk Road? Do you know what is the deep internet?
The what?
The deep internet? Okay. The deep internet, the internet that we know is, there is a calculation that most probably is around 10% of the real internet that is out there. There is a lot of internet that you cannot access through Google, okay, because it's not indexed, okay. A lot of this data is data that you cannot access with a browser, that you need to set up and do some type of a query to a database. This is why you cannot access to a browser. But there is another one that is not using the protocol that Google is looking to get the results on your research. And you need to go with another type of internet access, okay? That is what is called the deep internet, okay? The deep internet, as you can imagine, is a place where there are so many things, but some of them, they are not legal, okay? And there are e-commerce in the deep internet. And that thing that start to be really, really interesting to explore is the blockchain concept. The blockchain. The way that you are able to store for a community in a public way or in a decentralized way, but in a secret way, in a point that you don't know who are doing that, are transactions into community. That for emerging countries is a really powerful tool to be able to implement an alternative banking systems just using mobile phones.
In Spain?
Of course, everywhere. But in Spain, for example, we have a banking system, especially in Spain, we are really used to use the banking system. But in Africa, for example, banking systems are not really well implemented because there is no money there is no way to implement a banking system that is robust enough. They use some type of banking systems through mobile solutions like M-Pesa and different solutions. But at the end of the day, M-Pesa is a traditional currency system with a central institution who gives trust to the transaction. In this case, instead of a bank, is a telco operator, the one, okay? But they start to have the same type of problem. There is a central entity who manages that. With Bitcoin, you remove that. And removing that, for example, you decrease the amount of commission that you need to pay to do transactions.
But don't you think, because so Telefónica has had some initiatives regarding this, especially in the Latin countries, to work with virtual store accounts, to get rid of the necessity of a bank and we
Okay.
need your own wallet. And in the end, honestly, due to bureaucracy and regulation, and obviously Telefonica has a name, so they really limit
Exactly.
what Telefonica can do. It's not the technology, it's the regulation. In the end, things had to be done with a bank and with MasterCard, and the initial project in the end was scrapped, it was a failure, because we needed to go through all the regulation. But I do believe that virtual currency could succeed, and virtual store value accounts could succeed if you're able to go past the regulators and the interest of the visas, the MasterCards, and people like this. Otherwise, this will not succeed.
I agree. One thing is to get a virtual currency. It's like we design wallets, personal identity that is fully digital, and this can be done by a bank or it can be done by a telco, for example. It can be SIM-based, cloud-based, handset-based, but at the end of the day, what you are doing is to put a layer in a fiat currency, that is the money that we have nowadays, a layer of digital scheme on top of. But you will have an entity who is the one who gives trust, and at the end is some type of a virtualization of what we have nowadays in an analogical world. Bitcoin is a dramatic change on that point, because there is no one to be regulated. In this banking system that we have, there is entities like banks that at some point it can be substituted by a telco operator if you do a virtual transaction. And the ones who give trust is the operator because it's the owner of the SIM instead of the bank who is the owner of the bank account, or Visa or Gemalto, the ones who are the owner of the credit card, okay, the TCM, okay? In that case, what are you going to be regulating? Servers from people. Because Bitcoin is decentralized. There is no central entity who is managing and giving trust. Then you don't need to control someone that doesn't exist. Of course, sorry.
Can I just ask, but where I understand that regulations coming, I mean, on the one hand there's regulation of controlling currency in the central, but on the other hand you have regulations that are aimed at them firstly to try and detect and control criminal activity, which is one of the big points of Bitcoin. Secondly, you also have where some type of also protection for the users. I mean, maybe in the latest years it hasn't been the best example, but before, I mean, one of the arguments against the euro, for instance, is that before, when you had national currencies, then if there was an economic problem, then you could, you know,
increase the
devalue or devalue the currency. The central bank had mechanisms available in which it could protect the value that you have in the bank. And the problem is that if you have, for instance, your money not in euros but in bitcoins, and some sort of financial crisis or someone who owns enough bitcoins to be able to influence their real value decides to take an action, if there is no regulation, then you have absolutely no protection. So the individual person who owns very little bitcoins compared to the total number of bitcoins is totally at the mercy of you know, all these factors.
But I agree. One thing is the Silk Road and the illegal use of Bitcoin to buy drugs, okay? But the same thing happened with euros, but they try to link Bitcoins with the illegal use of Bitcoins. Why? Because nobody knows who owned that Bitcoin, and the transaction, when I pay you and you pay to me,
no, but that's
that
what
allows.
I mean, a lot of the regulations that we have on euros is, for instance, you know, the banking transfers and things like that, are so they can detect illegal activity. It's not because it doesn't happen, but you have a way of detecting it. Whereas with Bitcoin,
you cannot immutable the system. And the other point you're saying is about the amount of influence that, for example, somebody who has, I don't know, 1 million of Bitcoin. If you have only one, this guy is really managing amount of value into the system that can really manage in a way to get out of it. That is suppose what the experts say, that this is because the system is too young and is not really implemented. Then at the moment that the system will be older and Bitcoin will be more used and more split, then that thing is going to balance itself if the system doesn't disappear in a way. Then, my recommendation nowadays, I will never store my savings in Bitcoins. is too young, the system, to be able to assume that risk. Okay?
Do you have any bitcoins yourself?
Yes.
So what do you have?
Nowadays, speculating.
And
Pure speculation.
the limited number of Bitcoin, do you think it's, I mean, as you said, you have 12 million, you're gonna get maximum, no? You have like a proof like this.
Yes.
It's not gonna limit, I mean, the whole thing about, I mean...
No, because Bitcoin has another property that is really good, that a Bitcoin is, se puede dividir infinitamente. Okay? Can be divided infinitely.
So
Okay?
you mean instead of buying Bitcoins, we're gonna buy a portion of it?
Exactly, a nano Bitcoin.
Okay, so
Okay, you will end up with nano Bitcoins. The forecast says that, I don't remember when is the year, I'm sorry about that a Bitcoin will be equivalent to a budget of a city of 200,000 people, for example, to manage all the value that city creates. Because at the moment that the amount of mass that is into the system, the value of the Bitcoin will increase. Then to make it simple, if you have a Bitcoin today and you save it for 100 years, most probably this Bitcoin will be really valuable in the future. Because instead of losing money, because the amount of money is there, is limited, it's a good place to store money. It's like gold, if you want.
yeah, it's been a lot of literacy.
Exactly.
around it.
So the idea is that Bitcoin is going to be forever.
I don't know. I mean, my point is that most probably Bitcoin will disappear with time, but I think that's something that is here, and we will see a really much powerful implementation of that is the blockchain concept. The way that communities are able, only with computational power, to track themselves and give trust to transaction between them without the need of a central institution. Okay? Let's put it really simple. Imagine that you're a community of mothers that has been recently mothers, and you want to exchange all things that you don't use it. You can do it one-to-one, that it's easy, but at the moment that I have something, but she has something and I have something, most probably we would like to put a type of thing that is able to store value to allow us to do transactions. Okay? We can do it with one person of the community that will put it into a paper and will manage. Most probably that will be the treasury or the one who plays the role of the bank of the community. We really most probably end up being some type of a process to control that this one is not doing something wrong. Okay? After that, we want to keep the value, we need to implement value. Or the other thing, if we are a community, we can implement a decentralized system of managing value, that is blockchain. You can encrypt it or not, this is another question. If you want to do it anonymous, without knowing who is who, doing transactions, or you can make it public, knowing who has that value and who has doing exchange. This is another decision, okay? And on the startup scene, we start to see more and more startups that are facing this concept of currency systems, okay? Because if Facebook has been a tool that has been a really convenient tool to make capable to communities to start to exchange knowledge. Wikipedia, for example, or wikis has been a good place to store that knowledge. Facebook to interact and get connection to the community. The next step, a community to be able to evolve, besides to store the knowledge, besides to get interaction and share that knowledge, is to start to trade. Okay? At the moment that you want to trade, you can do it peer-to-peer, but this is really, really primitive. Easily, you will like to trade between all the people who belongs to the community. Then, to trade, you need a space where you need to store the value of the thing that I'm giving to him, because after that I will use it to buy something from you. Then, what I will need is a currency.
It's like another take and shared economy.
What?
It's like another take and shared economy.
Airbnb is that, yeah.
Exactly. And you need a new enabler of the communities to the next step, that is a currency to store value. You can use Bitcoin as a solution. You can use euros if you want. But most probably you don't want to manage euros with taxes, problems, regulation, because at the end of the day, we are a community of people who likes to ride bikes, and we exchange all parts of bikes, maps, routes, hours of fixing bikes. And we don't want to pay one to each other, we don't want to go to taxes and everything, because it's between our community. Okay? Then a system that is easy to implement, a currency, decentralized, we don't need to rely in any one of the community to be honest and don't cheat on us and take all the value and take it with him. Blockchain is a solution also.
Could it be applied to, I don't know, schools, organizations?
Cities.
Yeah.
For example, now in Barcelona we have one party that is proposing to create a Barcelona coin. You know that?
Yes.
Barcelona Comú is suggesting to create a Barcelona coin. Okay? Blockchain, it can be an option.
Exotic.
Not
Not really very useful.
That goes to another discussion, that is the local currencies. Why that makes sense or not, okay? I put you what is the concept.
Where do you have your bitcoins?
In my wallet,
They're in your wallet,
exactly.
in your computer,
Uh,
your smartphone.
How do you keep a wallet secure? Like, what's the risk of a wallet being stolen or compromised?
the only thing that you need to control is your private key. Okay? The wallet is just a direction and a program that stores and gives you the amount of money. But the money is not there. The money that you have in your bank account, in your wallet, is in the blockchain. Everybody knows, since it's encrypted, that nobody knows it's you, but everybody knows that this wallet has this amount of bitcoins. And this is public. This is in the
But your
blockchain.
private key is, in what form is it? It's a file, a string.
It's a string.
A string. So you have to keep that string secret.
Secret forever.
And where
So-
do you,
Well, like
where do
your
you keep it?
pin, like.
Yeah, but
I
a
mean,
pin
don't
you
say
memorize.
exactly how-
I'm
how do
sure
you-
this string you don't memorize. No?
No, it's a string that, I mean,
You have to have it written down or saved somewhere. Yeah?
I mean,
so it's
it-
only as safe as you have, as you keep.
I mean, depends on the amount of memory you have. I don't know. Okay, but it's a string
Well,
that.
today I can remember. The problem is if tomorrow I wake up and I can't remember it, I
Exactly.
lost all my money.
How much characters have they?
30, I don't remember, 30, 23, I think.
Does your wife have it also? Okay, you guys-
23, no?
I
I think.
But that's like your bank account was fake. And you remember your bank account. No?
The problem is that it's a mix of characters and numbers. It's not just numbers. It's a mix. It's a string. It's alphanumerical. And I mean, at the end of the day, is where you store your passwords. In your head, then the password is not a good password. As we can see here in the cybercrime experts, a password that you are able to remember is a password that can be cracked soon.
There is something more risky. That is the electronic signature.
Electronic?
The electronic chip.
It's possible that somebody stole your and sign everything. And misuse it, and it's approved by governments and so on.
The thing is
Yeah,
that
no, but I mean, there are ways to recover, yeah? I mean, for instance, if I see that something is happening or whatever, or what, and I mean, I can put a stop and recover, go in personally, prove who I am, change whatever, and of course there are people who manage to fake that and that, but it's a lot more complicated and difficult. But if you lose your key, because
You lose
everything is
everything.
anonymous, it's lost forever.
you lose everything forever.
There's no way
You
of
cannot,
recovering.
you cannot recover.
And the bitcoins are lost? Or
Yes.
They're remained?
Yes.
Or
Un poco
Yes.
fuerte.
Yes. Yes, yes. If you lose your private key, you lose the access to your wallet. It means you are not able to decrypt the amount of bitcoins that you have, and you are not able to accept bitcoins or to do transactions.
But they are still there? I mean,
Yes.
bitcoins are not
There
there,
are-
but they are
But they are ownerless. And
There are a
they will
lot
never
of
be able to be transacted.
there are a lot of bitcoins that nowadays are owned by people, but since a lot of people start to play at the beginning, they forget about where the key is nowadays, and the bitcoins will be there for the rest,
forever.
forever.
In this case, who
Unusable.
wins?
What?
Someone
In
will
this
take
case,
that money.
who wins?
I don't know what they will decide because, sorry?
In this case, who wins? What is this money?
The money is into the system. It's the same thing.
Nobody can use it.
It's the same thing if I take €1,000,000 and I throw it to the sea. To the sea. I take, I don't know, the money that I have on my wallet, I put it in, or I burn it. What is this value? Is accessible? No, not anymore.
Like the Spanish government.
Well, actually, that reminds me.
Yeah.
That reminds me to the Bankia black cards. Have you heard about the Bankia black cards?
Yes.
So the money from the black cards were money that was forgotten in the bank accounts of people that have never, in 50 years, never moved the account. So this money was real money, right?
But you see, that was recoverable at some point.
At some point, yes.
But this is...
That is the same thing as money lost. Lost in the concept that lost in a way that is not hide in some type of an account in a bank that somebody forget, but you can find it at some point.
That's
Then-
anybody else here? That's Bitcoins.
Then how I store my private key? Nowhere. How? Okay. I store it in a USB, and I have that USB safe. And the other way that you can do it, that is my decision, you can put it in a piece of paper, that's it. Okay. The other is that what you can do is you can download programs that put a level of encryption over the private key. Okay? And what you have now is a password to access that program that encrypts files that is easier for you to remember. Okay?
What if you die? Your wife knows the key, or?
Yes, it's something similar. If you die and you don't say anyone, where is your money? It's the same thing.
But theoretically, if you die and don't say anything, you go to the lawyer and they can.
If this money is in an official bank, then of course you can check on the bank.
In your back garden,
Exactly.
no one knows.
Yeah, but that is a question of bitcoins. There is advantage and disadvantage. But nobody knows that you have this money that is good for some things, that is bad for other things. There is no bank who is charging you to do transactions. That value that you have there is nobody will decide one day to start to print money and money and money, or even decide that you are not allowed to get access to your money. That is more critical. And with the crisis, we have seen some countries not allowing people get access to your money, to the saving of the rest of your life. Yes, you know, I have the money there, I have everything, or suddenly somebody will decide that we need to rescue the country, and people who have saving that more than, I don't know, 100,000 euros in a bank account, they will take it the rest to pay the debt of the country. Because the system is controlled by people that they have an interest. In bitcoins, nobody is controlling the system.
But there is a transaction cost the first time that you buy bitcoins.
But this is the company.
I know, but someone is charging you.
Exactly. But this is the private company to give you.
Paying with bitcoins, is there also transaction cost there?
Between Bitcoin and Bitcoin, no. There is a really small transaction, but a small fee, that will be supposed that in the future will be the add value for the ones who are mining the problems, solving the problems, to get that type of commission. But it's really, really low. Okay?
And when you want to buy something, you pay with your bitcoins, you have to place your secret code, your secret cash.
String.
I need to validate, yes.
So you have to put it somewhere. So it's kind of hard, not very...
Yeah, the user experience can be improved quite a lot. I think the ones who have designed that are not the ones better. Then the question is that how many things you can buy nowadays with bitcoins? For example, you can do donations to Wikipedia.
With what? Sorry?
You can do donations to Wikipedia. Wikipedia, for example, with bitcoins. Okay. There are some e-commerce that they start to accept bitcoins, and you can start to buy things with bitcoins.
Some e-commerce, for example.
E-commerce from real products, from real products that nowadays they have the option to pay by bitcoins. How you pay by bitcoins?
And is there an exchange market for bitcoins? I mean,
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why he's got his bitcoins only for regulation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is, you go to the web, there are nowadays 3 main players, but there are another ones, but that are private companies that they are offering the service to do that. How they do that is really simple.
In exchange of bitcoins, the US dollar,
Yes, whatever.
euros,
Whatever. There is a continuous market of Forex, but it takes a little bit of time to get, depends of course on the amount of money that you are asking, on the amount of bitcoins, and how many people is willing to sell the bitcoin and how many people is looking to buy bitcoins.
Do you have, I don't know if you explained it, but I lost it then. Do you have the risk of a corralito with a bitcoin?
No,
Something like that?
no,
Nothing.
because who is the one who decides the corralito? The government. In Bitcoin, there is no central entity who is managing the system
And then what is the main risk?
of Bitcoins. There is one big risk that, for example, I don't know, Bitcoins, let's take a dramatic thing, okay? Russia, United States and Europe decide that Bitcoin is a pain in the ass, and instead of regulating, let's go into do a massive buying of Bitcoins to shut down the system, for example.
In Aleix, it's possible that it's possible that the high computation to get, for example, like
Exactly. That is the
4
other.
million
Exactly.
Bitcoins from the 12 to the 20. This is
That,
possible.
no, there is another threat. Okay, that is what happened is someone is able to get so much computational power that get 51% of the entire computational power of the system. Then this guy will be able, most probably, to corrupt the blockchain, corrupt the system. But nowadays, the amount of computational power that you have on the system is too big that nobody has that amount of computational power. Even if you plug Mare Nostrum and you plug several Mare Nostrums and supercomputers, that I don't know, the governments of this planet decide that they want to shut down and do a cyber attack to shut down Bitcoins, and they are going to take all the supercomputers that they own, they plug it into the system and shut it down. They will not be able to do it.
There's no solution to prevent that happening.
No, this is one of exactly
system,
no.
Because at the end, I mean, you mentioned that the interest is the distributed system.
Exactly.
What percentage of your properties have you invested to speculate on Bitcoin? I don't mean how much, but what the percentage?
90%.
No, just to play. Just first of all, just to understand how it works.
50.
No, a little bit more. No, but first of all, just to play a little bit, to download the wallet, to see how it works, create your password.
It's only a game for you, not really speculation. Even.
Speculation.
It's more of a
It's going down. In the
for
stock
learning.
market.
That was the beginning, and after that, when it gets crazy and everything, then gets more attraction
You
to
pay
me.
more than what it's worth now? Or
If I get money out of it, yes.
right now, yes.
Right now, yes.
Yeah, because the stock market has fallen.
Yes, but it was a 40 something at some point. Yes, exactly. When the Cyprus crisis, it gets crazy.
Where do you think this is going? I mean, is it going to be more commerce or?
Sorry?
Where do you think this is going?
I think I understand Bitcoin as an experiment that I think has started to shake brains of people about what is the role of currency in our life. That is something that, at least in my case, I will never be aware about what is the role of the money and the properties that the money already nowadays they have. And I think that especially with the startups that we start to see on the currency scene and with sharing economy, all these ideas, I think that enabling the trade in communities based on this concept of decentralized cryptocurrencies, we will start to see so many services, for example, in that field. And Bitcoin, most probably, we will end up being an experiment in 4 years from now. Most probably, we will speak about another thing. By the way, there are more versions of Bitcoins. You just change a small piece of the algorithm that has been developed, and you change that instead of this amount of Bitcoins will be released at that period of time, you change it with this, and you can plug. But the good thing is that you start to really understand the properties of a currency system, and then you suddenly can design the right currency system that you need for the value that you are trading in the community that you belong.
But you are saying that it can be regulated, no?
At some point, yes, why not? But it will be really tough. It's how you're going to do regulation in something that is decentralized. What are you going to do? Go people by people to see that they are paying the tax with the money that they are getting. That is true at the moment that you go out of the system. At the moment that I go out of the system,
You can never go out.
for example, imagine that start to be enough offered in Bitcoins that I don't need to jump out of the Bitcoin system. Nowadays I cannot survive with Bitcoins. But imagine that I can start to have e-commerce, that I can buy clothes, foods, cars. I can receive my salary from a company who is paying in Bitcoins, and I can live my entire life in Bitcoins. That is going to be a challenge, because who are going to really do a regulation of that?
This is a problem for the banks, and they are not a...
But this is why it's disrupting the bank system. Exactly.
They are not a
This is monetary policy.
Exactly. You are taking something out of the power of a country. That is what you say. Is, for example, I need to get debt, or I need to print more money because we need to cover some needs, and I come to the central bank and put the machine on. But at the moment that they do that, the value that you have in your wallet with your fiat currency, it goes down. Then all of us, we know that if nowadays you want to store the value of your work, money is not the right place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because in 10 years, it will be maybe half, depends on how what happened, and in 20 years, it will be nothing. Then you are forced as a person, if you want to store the value of the effort of your work, to look for something that is not money. And it's weird that something that was designed at the beginning, for example, to store value, nowadays is not at all something useful to store value.
And for you, what could be the thing that could represent the value of your work? What thing? Bitcoin? No. Money? No.
Why not Bitcoin?
Houses? No. What?
Houses.
Houses? No. No.
Real estate, you mean?
Real estate? Yes.
I think we ran out of time.
How much cost now? This time? The same?
Yeah, we learned with the crisis that real estate goes down. Something that nobody understood before, because real estate always goes up. But nowadays we realize that real estate can also goes down, especially in the surroundings of Barcelona. Yeah.
But there is nothing that is guaranteed. I mean, that's
Nothing that is guaranteed, 100%.
that's guaranteed. Its value over long periods of time.
But
One question. Why you say
No,
that
but you
this,
know the rules of the game with...
Well,
This
you
is
can
the-
know the rules of the game, but if you can't control them, it doesn't matter if you know them. So the market, the housing market, you know the rules of the game, but you can't control it. You don't know, and you don't know when it's going to go up or down.
but
So
for example,
we always-
previous governments dramatically changed the rule of the real estate market, for example, in Spain. And that gave us the real estate bubble in here, because the way that the land was we able to use or not changed dramatically. And that even have an effect that we didn't even know, combined with the interest rate, and we are in this thing. Nowadays, you know the rules of Bitcoin. And I 100% agree, there is no maturity in the system nowadays that small people can really balance in a way the system, because it's small enough that if you have enough value, you can really do a big change into the system. But at the moment that this value will be split with a big community and the system will be more mature and more adopted, that will not be possible. In a future, imagine a full implementation of a Bitcoin where you can live inside Bitcoin system, where you can do everything that you need.
But could it not happen that, I mean, it might be that one individual may not have sufficient money, but you can always have things such as, you know, rumors or things that can spread throughout the community, and a community can panic or
Sure.
can speculate, or and then you can still have the same thing that we have. I don't see clearly why the same type of fluctuations that you can have in a normal currency couldn't replicate in a...
But this,
Sorry that you don't know anything about it.
Of course, because it's all anonymous.
but
You don't know
fluctuation,
who else is in your community.
fluctuation, it comes at the moment that you go out of the currency system. This is one thing. But if you live entirely in Bitcoins, I mean, I don't, in my daily life, because I'm mainly based in Barcelona, about the fluctuations between euro and dollars is something that doesn't affect to me in my daily life, okay? Because I live in a euro system, and I always do the price of the things are not linked to a parity with dollars. There are countries that is like that. You use money that is not the money of your country, okay? But nowadays the fluctuation, it's relevant to me at the moment that I try to go out of a currency system and get into another one.
But, well, it's not true, because you will see prices, even though you live only in euros, but you will see prices of different things
moving,
because we're in a global economy and we don't have the whole world in euros. And
yes.
so you do see that, for instance, today apples may suddenly be very expensive because, you know, where Russia is suddenly importing all the apples and we don't
sure, exactly.
or whatever might happen. So that scenario of living completely only in Bitcoins and not going out, the moment you purchase a product that is produced in a country or produced by a community that uses a different currency, then you are in effect interacting.
Exactly, that is the forex.
So that would only hold true if the whole world only used Bitcoins.
That is an option. That is an option. The other is, as you say, that who prevents that now the next step of Bitcoin is a fully speculation mode to start to create the systems about forex, about exchange, about different type of do speculation with the value of money. That is something that you can do it with Bitcoins, with whatever thing that stores value. You can do it with diamonds, you can do it with gold, everything that has value. And who prevents us to do something like that? Nobody. Okay?
In my opinion, there are new ones coming to the market. New ones are Google, Facebook, and so on. And they are going to put another coin in the market.
Sure.
And that is a big problem because you must choose.
Well, it will take some time before that, but
We are.
why do you say it's a big problem?
Because you want to which currency, you have to create wallets in different currencies.
We are done of time.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. If somebody is interested to go in detail in Udemy, the MOOC platform, you have a really nice course in Bitcoin that you can go to really understand the mathematics behind the exchange, the wallet, and everything. Udemy.
Like Coursera.
Sí, Coursera, Udemy. There is a really good course on Bitcoin with a lot of lectures, extra.